Hi, I'm John Bogard and I'm an astrologer. Today we're going to cover Neptune and the South Node. And the charts we're going to look at are mediums. So we'll look at 4 different mediums. And I got to give you a little bit of history on the South Nodes. 20 years ago or so, I was studying Hindu astrology, and I come across there's the James Braha and Robert Defoe, I believe, and Pippin Bahari, and those are the 3 that I have studied. And James Braha would talk about Rahu and Ketu. That will be the Rahu's the north node, Ketu's the south node, and I would encourage all Western astrologers maybe to at least take a look at Rahu and Ketu, because I think it would give you a lot better insight to what the nodes really are as compared to maybe what we generally regard them as in Western astrology. And it does cross over. The South Node will perform exactly the same way regardless if you're doing Hindu astrology or Western astrology. Okay, so the South Node is what we're going to be mostly focused on today. And I come to find out that the South Node, for people who embrace it, and it's very difficult to embrace because it's so unknown and it's so not earthly. It's an entirely different connection. I would venture to say this: all hidden knowledge goes to those who embrace the South Node. That's, at the same time, the South Node will cause more problems in your life than, well, I can't say any other aspect or any other point, but it brings you into a place where you seemingly will have no answer whatsoever. When you embrace the South Node and become more aware of it in your reality, it empowers you on a level that it brings you into your own and a deeper understanding of the world and the people around you than probably a lot of the other planets. Now, Neptune is the other one we're going to cover today. We'll touch on Pluto a little bit because of one of the charts. The other one is Neptune. Neptune, and I read this a long time ago, psychics are swimming in the same sea that prisoners are drowning in when it comes to Neptune. Neptune, Pisces in the 12th house. And it makes a lot of sense. Especially if if you spent much time around drug addicts, alcoholics, people with addictive disorders. And that'll also bring in the South Node again. When the South Node is involved with an addictive disorder, I've only seen in two people that I've seen actually recover their lives. The rest, it was maybe not so much recovered. That's how that South Node plays out. This is critical when it comes to the South Node. The South Node will drive you to the most inner truth that you can come to. And that's how you can start embracing the South Node. So, it's like, I'll just use a quick example. So you have an individual that has an illness that, for no apparent reason, has a lot of things going on in their life. Let's say some child trauma. I'm actually using an example from the past. And just having pain in their stomach that's just takes them to the ER. and so can't find an answer though. Can't find that answer through using pediatricians, specialist. I forget what Kim's special was, but using her and therapies and diligently pursuing it. And it was a South Node thing. We had to get to it. Ultimately, there were some medications that would help with it, that would curve the pain. But when the parent recovered, that's when the stomach aches went away. When the parent recovered, the child was in such fear of losing the parent that all of those nerves just focused on the stomach. To get to that point, I just made it sound simple. But to get to that point where you have absolutely no idea whatsoever, and that little boy is in that excruciating pain, and you have no solution, that is South Node stuff. But we did find the answer because of honesty. If people were lying about what's going on, and there was some, unfortunately, there were some that weren't on board with this, but we charged ahead anyway, and things turned out all right. That's South Node stuff. So the truth is what will give you what you need to embrace that South Node, and it just don't lead you around like crazy. I did some South Node with Donald Trump's Jupiter and second house stuff on money and things like that, why he always brings money in, or his Jupiter. And then when his fraud case went through, now mind you, there will be appeals. When it was the South Node that came in conjunct his Jupiter in his second house of money. And Chiron was involved also. But you might want to take a really serious look, and I hope this video helps you a lot, because we're going to do mediums, and mediums have a considerably more embrace of the South Node than, say, maybe the drug addict or the people for whatever other reasons. So let's see, is there anything else? I want to cover this also, because when we start talking about mediums, you're going to run, even astrology, you'll run into skeptics. And there's nothing wrong with being a healthy skeptic. Everybody should be a healthy skeptic about things that they don't know about. However, people cross that line and they have contempt for whatever it may be. Whatever the belief system is that they have contempt for, it does not matter. And once you have contempt for something, you're no longer trying to differentiate the true from the false. You will only absorb into your mind and your emotional schematic that's which satisfies your belief system. And there's nothing you can do about that. I read a long time ago in one of John Edwards' books when he was doing Crossing Over, and a person even went and told the executives of NBC that they had mics planted all over the studio. And they come down and talk to the producers, and they're saying, no, that absolutely, check it out. There isn't. But that's someone that has more than contempt and is actually trying to hurt someone. So, differentiate that. And I had some things, as an astrologer, I kind of had to back away a little bit because I was dealing with professionals. And one of the therapists, she found out I was an astrologer, and she did not like that at all. And that became an issue with my interactions with the kids and the therapists. So I just kind of backed out of things and let that fade away for a while. But anyway, healthy skepticism, absolutely. Contempt, good luck with that. I think that's about it. We'll move on. This first chart we're going to look at is Allsion DuBois' chart. And we're just going to touch on, in these charts, pretty much just the psychic stuff. There's a lot here. You need to understand, when I look at an astrology chart, my brain gets flooded with information. So it sidetracks me a little bit sometimes. Her chart's a perfect example of what I was speaking about with the South Node. When I studied Hindu astrology, I noticed it took me into a different path to follow when studying the node. And if you look at her chart, okay, Neptune, and it's trining the South Node up here in the 10th house. Touches Chiron, comes back over here. And I'm tell you, you need to understand how Neptune kind of works. So with people who have more developed Neptunes, the best way to explain Neptune is like this. We have a part of us that we have an intuition about, or you could say you have some kind of gift of some nature where your intuition is more keenly attuned. Not everybody is tuned into being a medium. One guy's chart I did years ago, his was, he was a police detective, and then he was recruited by the FBI. But his Neptune, and it all related to crime, solving crime, and things of that nature, was beautifully placed. And so you could see why that would have happened. So Neptune is like a part of us that is a radio antenna, more or less. Okay, follow me on this. And when you tune your radio, you tune into a specific station that you like, and you know, that is the best way to explain it. And so if you are a medium, you are going to tune into souls that have crossed over to the other side. That's how their tuning works. Not everybody is a medium, and not everybody can be a medium. In this case here, Neptune trining the South Node up here in the 10th house, and she does things very professionally. She also, the show Medium, that was about her. It was, and that's when the first, I didn't really look her readings up until maybe years ago. I remember looking up maybe one or two of them, but recently I just started looking at her stuff again. And so if you ever want a real big uplift in your life, and maybe if you're down in the dumps or something, tune into some of these mediums, and if it's your thing, it will uplift your spirits. Now, also in her chart, beings what she's reading is an energy. She is a Uranian ascendant here. Or, excuse me, Libra is her ascendant, but this Uranian energy conjunct it. That will make any of her abilities for reading what they call energy, it gives it a lot more power. Okay, so let's say, go back to the radio station analogy. Her radio station that has a lot more power supply than maybe some other radio stations. That's the best way I can explain it, to where you can start to comprehend. We all have a Neptune, but we just use it differently, okay? Hers is pretty phenomenal. I like watching her readings. I recently just listened to an interview that she had, and I'll just point out a couple of things because I don't want to be too intrusive here in other people's lives with, you know, I don't know. I kind of, with these people, to me, and the line of work they do, and what I have done doing readings, you kind of form even though you've never met, you form a respect for it. But I do want to point this out. She'll mention that she worked in prosecutors' offices and things like that. And so when and if I do law in this YouTube, Saturn's huge in that. And she even desired to do that one time. Her father's stuff here is just phenomenal. And when I listened to the interview, it was, her chart was, she's really, her life is living her chart. And that's what you want. You want a healthy, strong ego. You want to, the way you will be most at peace in life is becoming the best you can be. And you can look at natal charts and really tear into that, which you kind of mostly knew all this stuff anyway about yourself. But a natal chart will give you that reassurance. And then you can add to life. And these people, mediums, add a lot to life. What they give to those people is just a tremendous amount of healing. And I will re-emphasize that in her chart, because Chiron right here, the wounded healer, touches her south node and comes over here to her Neptune. That's beautifully aspected. So this is a person who can really use her profession to help others have a very healing experience. Okay, that's her chart. Now let's go to the next one. Tyler Henry. This is the Hollywood medium. Now, here we go. Look at all of this. This is just loaded here in his 5th house. But his south node's up here in the 8th house, and it comes down, and it's T-squared. His south node is kind of in a difficult position, so it's not as... actually, when I look in his chart, you can absolutely see Neptune here. It's conjunct the sun. It's also aspect in Uranus here once again. Uranus, Neptune, South Node. They're biggies on reading energy. Mercury isn't that far off. Mars, all of that. And when I watched Tyler's readings, the first time I started, it was a few years back. I ran into the Hollywood medium, and out of all of the mediums that I've watched, when I pulled up their chart, Tyler's chart, how could I put this? He feels a lot of internal pain. He does. He's it's on a different level. So when I look at it, I just have a lot of compassion there. When you see people with these kind of aspects and what they're internally dealing with. But once again, we have a T-square with the south node. His Neptune, powerful Neptune in the chart. We got the Uranian energy with it. So that's his. Now let's take a look at Gale St. John. This was amazing to me because periodically I watch psychic detectives. And I watch it for 2 reasons. Not only to see the psychics work, but to see what the police detectives have to go through, because they are skeptics. They are true skeptics. So they just... not all of them, of course, but the overwhelming majority of them have to go through a transformation stage. But that's the difference. Okay, that's how you can tell when you're dealing with true detectives. They're going to look at the facts. They're going to look at the evidence. And then they form their hypothesis from that. But a true detective will follow the evidence and the facts. If you get someone, say, that just believes anything, or they don't have that, they have prejudice, or they have, they have contempt towards something or someone, it gets back to what I said before. If you have that, you shut yourself off. You can't differentiate what's true and false, because your psychology, your mind, your thought process, and your emotional schematic will not permit you to absorb anything that violates your belief system. And that could be a real problem, especially when you're dealing with any kind of people and professions on any level. Now, so what happened, I'm listening and I'm watching this, and I'm watching the case, and all of a sudden, it ends up being that Gale, the woman that died, came to Gale and said, hey, the same guy who murdered me is going to murder my friend that very night. Now, this is kind of, it set me back because it's the first time. So Gale contacted the people and the authorities, and sure enough, that guy was going to murder her friend, and he ended up confessing to the murders and all of that. But what really grabbed me about this is the first time I had ever watched or seen anything to do with medium work where someone actually stopped a murder before it happened. And then when I was listening to a podcast from someone that was interviewing her, and I believe it was Larry King who also, I could be wrong about that, who also said that's what really struck him. And that opens up a whole door of opportunities, a whole thought process of, the power of these people's work. Another thing, I'm going to mention this too about her chart. If you take a look at this Capricorn she has in the second house, she's got Saturn in Capricorn, Mars in Capricorn, Mercury in Capricorn, Sun in Capricorn. Capricorn, her Capricorn works on a really high octave. She has the ability, and she does this, and she does it through, I believe, search and rescue, and she does it with her dogs that she has, things like that. And she really gives back to life, even though it's on this level that she works. She gives back to life in a way that's the ultimate transformation of a Capricorn. Capricorn frequently likes to be using, and they never seem to satisfy that. But when you get a healthy Capricorn, they are the best people on the planet because they will give back in a way that a lot of other signs cannot. But it's not really that common with Capricorns. You don't run into it on this level that she works. So that's that as an astrologer, and I see that's just, it's a rarity to see people of Capricorn nature like that adds to creation. Now, let's look at her Neptune. Notice I'm not touching a lot on Pluto. I'm not, even though that plays a little bit of a part in here. Now, her Neptune, and I will get into these later on, but she has no major aspect anchoring her Neptune to this chart. When you have a planet and it has no major aspect, Allison had one too, I believe. I think her Venus in Pisces in the 5th house. Let me look at that real quick, and we'll jump back here. I said it, so I got to check it. Yeah, right here. No major aspect to it. Okay, and then we'll go to Gale's. I should look at Tyler's real quick, see if I missed any of those. Oh, that's a sextile. That still connects it pretty good. His all look like they're anchored into the chart. Okay. So on Gale's, she has... So what will happen with a planet like this is just really good astrological information, if nothing else, for the astrologers out there. Whenever you see a planet, even if this was conjunct and there was no major aspects to it, say the moon was conjuncted or whatever, and there's no major aspects, that planet is going to be OP. It's just going to be overpowered. And that's her Neptune. That's her antenna she's using to make her communications. This is this angle here. This is the 4th house. This is what we call an angle. Her south node is in Pisces, conjunct this angle. And that makes this south node have a considerable... Any planet that conjuncts one of the angles or point will be gain a lot of power. And hers is in Pisces. So with her south node being in Pisces and her Neptune, that powerfully placed, being a medium, would be very much where her radio station, for lack of a terminology, that can tune in to those who have crossed over. And but once again, here we go, South Node and Neptune. My experience with the South Node over the years had developed this. It was a lot of research on the South and North nodes. So the South Node is Ketu, and the North Node is Rahu in Hindu astrology. And they have a whole story behind it, of course. John Edward. Okay, John Edward. He's another good one to tune into. There's a lot of video on him. He does readings. So if you're feeling, if I'm feeling in the dumps a little bit, I actually tune into a medium and watch readings. Because I'm not into being a skeptic about this stuff. Did my research. So when I'm watching a medium make a connection to someone who has passed over to the other side, that is the closest that I've ever seen or heard of that I can make, that I have that understanding that there is another side. And so I don't say like heaven or hell or anything like that. I have my own little terminology for it, you guys. I call it soul land. These people are communicating to the people in soul land, all right? That's what their radio frequency is tuned to. Now, John Edward. We do touch a little bit on Pluto in his chart. But John Edward, here's Neptune. This is his ascendant. His ascendant is Scorpio, and this is 27, 28 degrees. So once again, we have planet touch in an angle. So Neptune's going to have a lot more power, okay? It's going to have a lot more influence over his experience here. And then we have the South Node, and it is conjunct Pluto here. See that? And all of this 10th house stuff. And he's very much a professional with it. He's very much public eye. Now, I could be wrong about this, but I didn't see Tyler and John Edward. They don't work as much with law enforcement, if they even do. And that would be in the chart also. Like, it won't gravitate towards them. When you look at Allison's chart and Gale's chart, you can see how that would manifest with... like Gale's is really big with law enforcement. Allison's is too, but Allison worked with, there's a lot of things being said with her moon conjunct Saturn, and I'm not going to get into it, but I will point it out. This here. A lot being said about that as far as what drew her to where she got to. And this here, this aspect here, I'll mention this too. Whenever you see a moon in nice aspect to the sun, you really want to see that in people's charts. It's a nice aspect to have. And if you see it in a composite chart, a relationship chart, it is probably one of the best aspects you can have in a relationship chart. But I saw that and I thought that's really pleasant. And in that interview, she spoke so highly of her father and that connection she had with her father. And this is the father in the home and this North Node. So her father, and you can just you can just really pick up that connection she had with her dad. And there's so much more in these charts, and I don't want to get sidetracked with it. Okay, I do want to point this one out too. This is Ronald Reagan's chart. This is when I first was this is way back when I was looking at the nodes. And this was before I started studying Hindu astrology when I looked at this chart. And I was going off what I learned in Western astrology about the nodes. And they'd say, well, you know, that's the South Node. Don't go back towards the South Node. That's stuff you've previously learned and things of that nature. And then we have the north node here, and that's conjunct right there. So this is where I stumbled into the south node, Jupiter conjunct. He became president of the United States. Jupiter is where most of our luck is, things of that nature. It's in his 10th house, his public eye. So I was really considering a different perspective, even at that time, what the nodes meant than what I was, some of the stuff I was reading in Western astrology. The idea that the south node was things that you had already learned, so don't go back to that direction, that house, those signs, and go towards your north node that doesn't really fit what you'd have to do for, you have to have a Jupiter in your chart and in your life. So it wasn't, it just wasn't fitting together. So that's when I really took a different perspective of starting to look at the nodes and what they mean. With all that being said, I hope you guys really got some good stuff out of this video that'll help you down the road, and see you at the next video.